Hello and welcome to SODACON Global 2021, Data and Storage Matters, the second edition of SODACON, the flagship event for SODA Foundation. My name is Anvit KS and I'm one of the maintainers of the SODA Foundation projects. I will also be your Master of Ceremonies, your maitre d' if you will, for SODACON 2021. 2 days, 5 tracks, over 3 different languages with over 80 speakers from various organizations and attendees from all over the globe. This is truly one of the biggest events of the year for us, and we're very happy to have you here and hope that you will enjoy the next 2 days of the conference. A few announcements before we start off. All the sessions will have Q&A sessions towards the end. So speakers, please note that after the session is over, we'll have quick Q&A towards the end. And attendees can ask your questions in the Q&A section. If you're a speaker or a panelist, kindly mute when joining and when you're not speaking. You can unmute when speaking and keep your video while you present. We're using AirMeet, so if you've joined as an attendee, you don't have audio video, but you can use a chat and a Q&A session to ask questions. If you ask a question, we will be answering them in the chat, or we will also be using the audio to answer the questions live. Remember, we are running quizzes throughout the day, and these quizzes are going to be based on the sessions and your knowledge of SODA Foundation. So start studying and answer your questions, and you stand a chance to win vouchers from Amazon.com. All right. You can check out the schedule on AirMeet. You can also join the sessions when they start. And a shout out to all our event sponsors and partners, platinum sponsors, Intel, Huawei, Toyota, Fujifilm, and IBM, premier partners, SNIA and CNCF, gold sponsors, Scality, event partners, CCICI, CESI, JDSF, Krishna Jayanti College, and SPC and OIF. You can check out their booths in the booth section. You'll be able to talk to some of the representatives who are on the tables at the booths. We also want to bring the real world experience of a conference to you. It's not just about the sessions, it's not about going to the booth, but also about networking and talking to other people. So we have a lounge where you can go chat with other people, other attendees, and we have something called a speed networking, sort of like a speed dating for you to talk to other attendees. Check it out, talk to people, make friends, all right? And keep an eye out on the event feed and the alerts section. We'll be sending out information about sessions, about any other activities that are going on at the booths, and also any live broadcast at the booths in these sections. Remember, we are using the hashtag #SODACON2021 on social media. Please tweet, share, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, @SODA Foundation. If you need any support on the platform, you can check out the networking section. There is a dedicated table, or you can use the help section to the bottom right corner. With that, ladies, gentlemen, and others, let's get started with SODACON 2021, Data and Storage Matters. Let me invite on your screens now Mr. Stephen Tan, SODA Board Chair, VP and CTO, Cloud Solution at FutureWay for the opening keynote. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Aviv. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SODACON Global 2021. Let me share my screen. Ahead of us, with participants joining us from around the world, like what Aviv was saying. We start day one here in North America and continue with day two in Asia and Europe. This gives our global community a chance to attend wherever they may be. So SODACON Global is about data and storage matters. We're going to be talking about a wide range of topics from cloud-native data management to computational storage. There are talks about open source projects and standards and solutions that are built around them. And end users like Toyota, SoftBank, and China Mobile, and others will also be sharing their stories. So first, again, I'd like to thank our platinum sponsors, Fujifilm, IBM, Intel, Toyota, and Huawei, and our premier partners, Cloud Native Computing Foundation and SNIA, Storage Networking Industry Association, for helping to make this event possible. I also like to thank our other sponsors and partners for their support. SNIA will be hosting a track after the keynotes with many exciting presentations from the SNIA community. So do join that track if you're interested in knowing more or the latest in developments for storage standards and technologies. SODA just turned 1 year old. And this past year has been difficult for everyone, but the SODA community has continued to show their support and commitment. These are photos of some pre-SODA events held around the world before COVID-19. And I appreciate the support from the community and hope we can get together again very soon. Today, I'm pleased to announce that Seagate Federal, a subsidiary of Seagate Technologies, is joining SODA Foundation. Seagate Federal creates data management solutions for federal agencies. Here's a little trivia. Seagate is a pioneer of the storage industry. The first Seagate hard disk launched in 1980 had a capacity of just 5 megabytes. It cost $1,500 at the time, which is equivalent to $4,500 right now. So today you can just walk into Best Buy and get a 1 terabyte drive for as little as $50. Isn't that amazing? So next, I'm also pleased to announce that the Open Infrastructure Foundation is also joining SODA Foundation as an associate member. And likewise, SODA Foundation is also joining Open Infra Foundation as an associate member. This partnership allows us to work closer to advance open data and storage infrastructure together. We are privileged to have with us here today Jonathan Bryce, the Executive Director of OIF, to say a few words. Please join me in welcoming Jonathan. Jonathan.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be here. I will share my screen, so give me just 1 second while I get that opened up. All right, should be loading now. So I wanted to thank SODA Foundation and Stephen for giving us an opportunity to participate in this SODACon this week. I wanted to take just a few minutes this morning to talk a little bit about the Open Infrastructure Foundation and what we think in terms of why data and storage really matters, and also also acknowledge what Stephen just mentioned, which is that we have recently become associate members between the Open Infrastructure Foundation and the SODA Foundation, and I hope that that leads to a long relationship with lots of collaboration between our organizations. So first of all, the Open Infra Foundation, for those of you who aren't familiar, is an open source foundation that actually formed up around the OpenStack project previously, and has since then added additional projects, but all with a focus on infrastructure. It's a global community in over 180 countries with 111,000 individuals that are part of it, people who are contributing to open source infrastructure software, who are operating it in their businesses, and who are helping us to achieve our overall mission. And that mission is really focused on making sure that the fundamental building blocks of digital infrastructure are available to everyone, no matter what part of the world they're in, what country, what company they work for, what industry they're in. We really believe that human progress and really much of what we accomplish across all of our organizations is just so dependent on having modern digital infrastructure, and we want to make sure that that is something that's not locked up in proprietary systems or really only available in certain areas. So that's really what drives us and drives kind of the work that we do within our community. Let's make sure that all of that infrastructure is developed in the open, that there are options where people can access it and use it everywhere. And in addition to those individual members, we have platinum and gold members who are from around the world and from many industries who support that mission. Many of their employees are important contributors to open source projects, and they also help different businesses implement these open source infrastructure tools and be successful with them. Some of the projects that we host and support are things like Airship for the telecom industry, Starling X for edge computing, Zool for CI/CD, Kata containers for container isolation and security. And in addition to those projects, we also support a number of external projects that in some cases are living in other foundations or not in foundations at all, but we feel they are really important to kind of the infrastructure that we all depend on. Things like Magma, Rust, VMM, OpenDev, and many others. The project that is probably the most well-known that we work on is OpenStack, which is one of the 3 most active open source projects in the world, and is really focused on automating the core low-level infrastructure components like storage, networking, and compute. So when we think about the future and what we want to be working on as a community, we often say that we are focused on the next decade of infrastructure. And when we think about the topic that we have today of data and storage matters, I think this is a very relevant thought to have in our minds as we kick off this conference. Why does data and storage matter? Why does infrastructure matter at all? It seems like for much of the world, digital infrastructure is something that's hidden, that's below their level of awareness and their knowledge, and so a lot of people take it for granted. But what I have seen and what I think is more true than ever is that as we advance and as we see more advanced technologies and more advanced kind of software development processes and tools come along, those all put new demands on the underlying infrastructure. So if we think about some of the hottest topics in technology today, things like cloud native computing with containers, edge computing, the push of the telecom space into more and more virtualization and containerization. At the end of the day, all of those trends and all of those use cases are putting new and increasingly complex demands on the underlying infrastructure. And this is where I think it's very important for those of us who are working in open source communities to keep in mind what our ultimate purpose is. At the infrastructure layer, we are trying to enable innovation. We're trying to enable rapidly advancing use cases at higher layers of the stack. So we think about cloud native applications and what do they need from infrastructure? Well, they need highly elastic and automated infrastructure. How do we create infrastructure for edge computing, infrastructure for AI and machine learning? In that case, we look at what the differences and demands are. And for AI and machine learning, a lot of times people don't want just a standard server with an x86 processor and some kind of standard storage in it. They're looking for hardware acceleration at the compute layer, at the storage layer, at the network layer. And so all of these trends, they end up creating new demands and new requirements for the underlying infrastructure. The way that we think about OpenStack, which I think, as I said, is a project that's very relevant for this conference, is as a way of bringing together those core infrastructure components across bare metal, virtualization, and containers by integrating with the best technologies at each of those layers. So in the virtualization space, OpenStack can orchestrate KVM hypervisors. It can work with VMware. It can work with most of the hypervisors out there. On the container side, we have a very large number of OpenStack environments that are running Kubernetes for container orchestration. On the bare metal side, tied into many hardware systems. And then on the storage side, there are a couple of key projects which you'll see here in the storage box, Swift, Cinder, and Manila, that all integrate with different storage projects and different storage systems. Cinder is a block storage service and API, and it connects with with commercial offerings from companies like NetApp and Fujitsu and IBM and others, but it also integrates open source projects. I think this is something where we should be thinking across our communities if there's an opportunity for more integration. Manila is a file service API and component within OpenStack, and again, it works with commercial and open source systems there. The overall point of this, though, is I think one of the benefits that we have in open source communities is the ability to work together across different communities and across different technology sets to integrate those into services and into solutions that really are meeting those next generation needs that we have at that application layer, where we see those cloud native applications or artificial intelligence and machine learning coming into play. And so, as we think about how data and storage matters, I think that we see that trend playing out very much in the storage space as well. I remember when I started in cloud computing about 15 years ago, long time ago now, the thing that everybody thought was going to happen with cloud is that all of that differentiation across different hardware providers and companies was going to disappear, and we were going to have just a handful of very standard commoditized clouds that were going to be offering these kind of menu-driven options. And what I've seen is actually the complete opposite, where now people have wanted that same benefit of cloud across all of the diversity of hardware and software that's out there. And so cloud has actually not kind of standardized down to the lowest common denominator. It's very, very diverse. And I think that speaks to how cloud is actually more relevant and more useful than ever before. And those infrastructure components within cloud, the reason they matter is because they are enabling those great new use cases that we see. So to wrap up, I just want to mention that there is another talk from Kendall Nelson, who is also at the Open Infrastructure Foundation. That'll be happening in just a couple of hours. And she's going to be going over some integration between OpenStack and Kubernetes and the storage components that are really relevant there. So a little bit deeper dive than what I've done. But I think still going to be along the same lines of how valuable open source is to bringing all these pieces together. So again, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and really excited for the event, and also excited for the ongoing partnership between the Open Infrastructure Foundation and the SODA Foundation.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Definitely looking forward to more integration with the infrastructure blocks. In fact, as far as I understand, when we started the project prior to SODA Foundation, which was known as OpenSDS, we actually leveraged the Cinder block, to attach to storage, because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, because Cinder was a popular project, and basically all the storage that was in use were connected to it. So definitely, looking forward to more integration work with the Open Infrastructure Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next, so we're looking forward to working together with OIF and Seagate for more of the integration work and the development work that they've done. So we also appreciate the continued support of our members, and I'd like to thank our premier members, China Unicom, Fujitsu, Huawei, NTT Communications, and Toyota, for continuing to support and lead this open source initiative. With that, I'd like to give some updates on what the SODA community is working on, and also share some highlights from the SODA Data and Storage Trends Survey. So the typical enterprise IT consists of individual technology stacks for file storage, containers, backup, and so on. So these stacks rarely interconnect and share resources, and creating an environment full of silos that is difficult to monitor and control. So, and infrastructures often span multiple data centers, multiple clouds, and sometimes the edge. And this adds to the challenges in monitoring and control of data and storage. Some of the challenges would be like redundant or obsolete data taking up storage space, performance problems due to placing data in the wrong kind of storage, and protecting data wherever they may be located. And also retaining and securing data for many years to meet with data compliance laws and regulations like GDPR. So all these challenges add to create So we believe the solution lies in an open data framework that provides a centralized view and control, connecting storage to containers, VMs, and other platforms. This framework should provide data and storage services such as block, file, and object storage, backup and recovery, security and compliance, and so on. The whole idea is to unify data and storage management with a single open framework across the core, the cloud, and the edge. And for this to work, we need four things: open source, open standard, open ecosystem, and open collaboration. First, open source. So in the past year, we have been making significant developments for the open data framework. The ODF releases, quarterly releases, are named after islands in alphabetical order, from Faroe, Greenland, Hawaii, Isabella, and the latest release, Gerber. So the key features that we have developed from Faroe to Isabella include heterogeneous storage management, multi-cloud, storage performance monitoring and visualization, container storage interface plug and play or CSI plug and play, S3 object data lifecycle management, and many others. The latest Gerber release focuses on the cloud-native data management, providing container data protection with application consistent snapshot. So in addition to ODF, we have also accepted 2 projects into SODA Foundation. And it is a project developed by China Unicom. It is a massively scalable object storage that can scale up to exabyte level using Ceph clusters on its backend. It is in production use at China Unicom, storing a few petabytes of data. DALS is an open source project led by Intel. DALS takes advantage of next generation NVM technology to provide high bandwidth and high IOPS storage containers to applications. So our next keynote speaker, Andre, will be sharing more details about the DALS project. And next is open standard. So ODF APIs are based on the SNIA Swordfish standard. By leveraging Swordfish management profiles, we are able to speed up the development of ODF and ensure the interoperability with the Swordfish ecosystem. The ODF storage API includes storage provisioning with policies for replication, snapshots, protection, and retention. The multi-cloud API supports the major cloud services and operations, such as data lifecycle management. And the monitoring API enables storage performance monitoring with IOPS, throughput, and other metrics. New requirements. So, and the next thing that we need is an open ecosystem. And so to facilitate the growing and open ecosystem with SODA, we created the SODACON initiative. It is a program to help projects develop, grow, and be adopted by end users. The program accepts open source projects with an OSI approved license, such as the Apache 2.0 license. When we welcome independent projects developed by companies, as well as projects hosted by other foundations, such as those hosted by OpenStack. And today we are launching the SODACON initiative, and I'm pleased to announce that these 4 leading open source projects, LeanStore, OpenEBS, Zenko, and Cortex, have joined us for the launch. So LeanStore is a project developed by Limbit. LeanStore makes building, running, and controlling block storage simple. There will be a session by Limbit tomorrow to introduce the LeanStore project. OpenEBS is a container-attached storage providing dynamic persistent volumes to Kubernetes. So Zenko is an open source infrastructure software, the most flexible way to manage your data without cloud lock-in. These Scality Chief Product Officers, Paul Special, will be able to talk more about the project later in this keynote. And the last project, Cortex, is a distributed object storage system designed for great efficiency, massive capacity, and high HDD utilization. Cortex is developed by Seagate, and there'll be a session later today And the last piece for the open data framework to work is open collaboration. The open data framework is not an isolated ecosystem. Its purpose is to provide data and storage services to OpenStack, Kubernetes, and other platforms and applications. So it is important for SODA community to work closely with these other communities to increase integration and drive innovation. So besides OpenStack, one of the other community that we work closely with is the CNCF community. And we work with them on Kubernetes, Prometheus, OpenEBS, and some other projects. So SODA and CNCF are working together to advance cloud-native data management and storage. So our next speaker, Bill Mulligan, Marketing Manager at CNCF, will be sharing more about cloud-native data management and storage. So please join me in welcoming him.
Hello, and welcome to SODACON 2021. I'm Bill Mulligan, and I'm from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and I'm here to talk to you today about Cloud Native, which I believe is the building block for connection. Now, let me take you back about 5 or 6 years ago when Pokemon Go and the Cloud Native Computing Foundation were just beginning. Now, if we kind of all remember the Pokemon Go phenomenon, you saw people everywhere walking around on the streets, playing with their friend. You know, it was like a whole summer where the only thing people could talk about was Pokemon Go. We all came together around a common thing. And this whole experience, this connection with other people that we had, was made possible through cloud native technologies. Pokemon Go actually had 50 times their expected traffic, and they were able to scale this by using cloud native technologies like Kubernetes. This human connection that we had through this fun game over the summer was made possible by cloud native technologies. And cloud native technologies are the forefront of driving both human connection and innovation today. Now, let's go back to the beginning and help understand what created cloud native and where we are today. So way back in like 2000, we started kind of with really virtualized with hardware. Everything was done in the hardware and nothing was virtualized. Then came along VMware and other cloud providers like AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. We had platform as a service, and then started to convert into open source forms of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. And then in around 2013, Docker came along, and in 2015, the CNCF was formed along with the Kubernetes project. And since then, it's really been a wild ride. Within 4 years, Cloud Native became the fastest growing open source community in the world. Every single major public cloud provider became a platinum member, and we've hosted some of the largest open source conferences in the world. The EU conference back in May hosted 26,000 people virtually. And even with the pandemic, the growth of the cloud native community hasn't slowed down one bit. In fact, it's almost accelerated. In 2019, we had 518 members, and today we have 671, which is a 30% growth. In 2019, we had 81,000 contributors, and now we have almost 130,000 contributors, a 60% growth. And the number of members in number of projects in 2019 was 44, while today we have over 100, representing over 100% growth. Cloud native really is taking off in the pandemic area, and I only see this trend to accelerate as we transition back out of the pandemic. And so I guess that brings us a little bit to today. Where is Cloud Native today, and what is it doing? If you're not familiar with the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, it is the open source foundation that hosts over 100 different projects in the cloud native space. The most well-known ones are probably Kubernetes, Prometheus, and Envoy, and these make up our graduated projects. But we have projects across a whole range of things, from logging to container runtimes to storage, which is important for the SODA Foundation. In addition to our graduated projects, we also have a lot of incubating projects. And these are projects that are still in the growth phase. A lot of companies are trying them out, but maybe it's not ready for wide stream adoption yet, and they just need to work out the last few kinks. And then on top of that, we also have our sandbox projects, which is the very early growth stage experimental projects where all the exciting new technology and experimentation is happening, really the bleeding edge of what's possible. CNCF has, as I said before, over 650 members, including the world's largest cloud and software companies across a range of different industries. Our gold members represent people across different technologies. And I think the thing that I'm most excited about is really the wide variety of our startups that are part of the foundation too. They represent kind of the bubbling up, and the number of acquisitions that we've had in the cloud native space out of our silver members has been crazy. It seems like almost every single week we have a new member being acquired. And I think one thing that really sets the CNCF apart is also our end user community. We like to talk about having end user driven open source, where companies like Toyota or N26 or Twitter are driving, the actual requirements. They aren't selling things. They're the people actually having to put things in production, wake up at 3 a.m. if anything goes wrong, to serve their end customers, whether it's consumers or other businesses. These are the people that, go to battle every single day with these technologies and really have the proof points of whether they work or not. This end user community provides great feedback into our projects and into our vendors about how they can improve the cloud native ecosystem. And this really provides a great feedback mechanism to help create a virtuous cycle of improving the projects, which allows more end users to adopt the projects, having better projects, and those new end users can then provide feedback. How does this connect to the SODA Foundation, and why am I talking to you today? I think cloud native connects a lot of data. Now, when we began 6 years ago with just Kubernetes and a couple members and a couple projects, it was pitched as beginning with just stateless workloads, just a stateless website that you're going to throw up and host on Kubernetes. But now we're seeing Kubernetes managing so many more use cases, and especially a lot more stateful use cases too. In addition to that, there's a lot of database projects that are hosted by CNCF, like etcd, like Rook, TIKV, Vitesse, Dragonfly, Longhorn, OpenEBS, Pravega, Vineyard, and Chubo FS. This is not something that we say this isn't a problem for Kubernetes or for cloud native to solve. We now see stateful workloads with data and databases and storage as an important part of the cloud native ecosystem, and it's only going to become more and more important. As kind of a testament to that, we recently had the formation of the Data on Kubernetes community focused specifically on how people are running stateful workloads on Kubernetes, sharing their experiences, how they can do it, and what kind of they've learned from it. The Data on Kubernetes community has seen fantastic growth. They now host over 70 meetups in 4 different languages from people all over the world. And they're also collaborating with our new student groups too. They have over 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. You should follow them on Twitter, and also 1,200 people in the Slack. Lots of different end users, as I was talking about before, have shared their experience running stateful workloads on Kubernetes, and I think we're only going to continue to see that grow. If you want to learn more, check out dok.community, and you'll find a lot of information about them there. The other exciting thing about the community, if you can see in the bottom right there, is they integrate a lot of art, like visual, like music, into their community and into what they do. So it's providing a way for the arts and sciences to collaborate. And I think it's a really fun space to be in. Once again, representing kind of the diverse perspectives and backgrounds of people in the cloud native community. Beyond that, we also, this end users put out a tech radar talking about what technologies they're actually using in production every single quarter. One of our latest ones was about databases and storage. And as you can see, the end users are recommending different technologies at different levels of technologies they're actually adopting and putting into production today, technologies they recommend to trial and see how they're going, and other ones they're in the process of assessing and are kind of on the radar for right now. And as you can see, there's so many different technologies in the adopt category. The importance of data to the cloud native community is growing, and I only expect to see more and more in the adopt category as each of these technologies and projects becomes more and more mature for the community. Beyond that, the CNCF has many projects that integrate into SODA Foundation projects. In some of your latest releases, you have integration into things like the container storage interface, or CSI, OpenEBS, and JubaoFS. And I'm excited to see more and more integrations between the SODA Foundation and between CNCF, because as I stated before, the importance of data to the cloud native community is only growing. And I think the SODA Foundation will play a key role in unifying the data experience for people in the cloud native community. So I'd like to see the integration and collaboration between the SODA Foundation and CNCF continue to grow. Beyond just the data, CNCF hosts many projects that rely on data. For instance, things around machine learning, AI, and high performance computing through projects like Fluid and Volcano. Each of these provided an important way for people to leverage the data that they're storing in their cloud native workloads and producing a better product for their end consumer. Beyond that, CNCF hosts many projects around edge and IoT computing. So even though Kubernetes was born to run massive Google scale data centers, it's now evolved much like the Linux kernel and is going down even into embedded systems. We have projects like K3s, which is a lightweight distribution of Kubernetes. There's KubeEdge and OpenYurt for running Kubernetes on the edge. Tinkerbell, which does bare metal host management, Spiffy and Spire for identity and security, Network Service Mesh for IP service mesh, Metal Cube for bare metal host management, and Parsec for hardware security. Each of these projects are going to be more and more reliant on data. Like one of the key drivers behind putting things on the edge or leveraging IoT devices, because the data is generated and used there. And so being able to manage the data across all these different geographies and locations is going to be key to the success of the edge computing and IoT ecosystem as it integrates into the cloud native ecosystem. And underpinning all of this will be the data that these sensors and that these computers are relying on. And this is where the CNCF needs the SODA Foundation to collaborate with us to make edge computing and IoT, machine learning, and AI workloads successful. And now I've talked a lot about we should connect. Now I'm going to suggest specific ways that we can connect going forwards. And I'd love to see us collaborate within our communities. So a couple of different ways you can do it. There's the Kubernetes IoT Edge Working Group. They have a bi-weekly meeting to discuss the challenges and tribulations around running workloads outside traditional data centers. Second, you can join a CNCF projects. All the data-related ones that I mentioned earlier are always looking for new perspectives, new contributors, new integrations into projects with the SODA Foundation. I've already mentioned a few, and I'd love to see more integrations between our two communities. If you want to get involved in that or find more information about any of the projects, check out contribute.cncf.io. In addition, the Technical Oversight Committee, or TOC, which provides the technical guidance for the whole cloud native community, has a technical advisory group, so kind of like a subcommittee under it, specifically focused on storage. They recommend when storage-related projects should be go through the different levels of graduation. They produce white papers and other material helping inform the cloud native community about the best practices and best ways to manage and use databases, data, and storage on for cloud native workloads. It's also another great place to get involved. Depending on what you want to do, there's many different ways that you can jump into the cloud native ecosystem, and we'd love to have you. Last thing is CNCF, as I said, hosts the biggest open source conference in the world, and we'd love to see you at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, or the other co-located events around it. It'll be running October 11th to 15th, and it'll be both virtually or in person in LA, depending on what you do. You do need to be vaccinated if you want to come, but we would love to see you either virtually or in person. Along with that, there will be the Opening Networking and Edge Summit and Kubernetes on Edge Day, focused around the challenges of running workloads outside the data center. And there's the Kubernetes AI Day. And we'd love to see people talking about how they're solving data and storage related challenges in these different applications. And we'd love to see you there. That's all I'd like to say. I think the SODA Foundation is doing really exciting work, and I'd love to see how it's plugging more and more into the cloud native ecosystem. And I would love to see you at any of the events, groups, projects that I mentioned above. I think the SODA Foundation and the CNCF together have a very strong future together and have the awesome ability to connect, provide the building blocks to connecting people to innovative new projects and also to each other. When the next Pokemon Go comes out, I really believe that once again, the SODA Foundation and the CNCF will be at the foundation, the cornerstones, the building blocks of enabling that type of human connection, which we all really want coming out of this pandemic, is to connect to one another. And that's what we can provide through technology. And I'm excited to see how and where we can do that. Thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you. Please feel free, if you have any questions about the CNCF or if there's anything that we can help you with, reach out to me at any time. You can find me on Twitter at BreakawayBilly, or my email is bmulligan@linuxfoundation.com. It was my pleasure talking to you today, and I will see you at the conference. Thank you.
So thank you, Bill. That was a great talk, and hang on a second, let me share my screen again. So that was a great talk by Bill, and what Bill mentioned about the integration between the CNCF projects and SODA Foundation, definitely we've already started on that, and definitely there's a lot of other innovations that we could and integrations that we could do between the two communities. So the SODA Echo projects together with the SODA incubator projects form the core ecosystem for the open data framework. With open source, open standard, open ecosystem, and open collaboration, we believe ODF will be able to meet the needs of most end users and help users unify data and storage management with a single open framework across the core, the cloud, and the edge. So SODA projects are designed for end users. The SODA UAC members represent some of the world's largest organizations and the most innovative companies. They provide guidance to SODA by providing real-world use cases and requirements. And SODA in turn provides a neutral platform for them to address data and storage challenges together. In tomorrow's keynotes, Yazawa-san from Toyota will talk about large-scale IoT use cases. Kuzunoki-san from NTT will talk about the smart data platform that they're doing. And Kondo-san from SoftBank will be sharing about their data lake use case. So do join the talks tomorrow. So in this last part of my keynote, I'd like to share some highlights from the SODA Data and Storage Trend Survey. This survey was done in partnership with Linux Foundation research team back in April to May timeframe. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in this survey, and we will be sending out gift cards to the first 50 respondents of this survey in the next few weeks. So I'd also like to say thank you to our survey partners for getting their communities to participate in the survey and helping to make this a success. So thank you, CNCF. Again, we have great partnership with CNCF, and then Storage Networking Industry Association, Open Infrastructure Foundation. And you can see that besides like the projects and so on, we are also collaborating and partnering with all these different foundations on many different things that are related to data and storage, such as this survey. So also thank you to JDSF, the China Open Source Cloud League, Moonlight Open Source, and the Storage Performance Council. Thank you for participating in this survey and then really helping to make this a success. So let me share. So we received like over 300 responses for this survey. And after some filtering, we were down to 197 responses, which we think are the really valid ones. We think this is a pretty good number. I mean, even and a good start for the very first survey that we are doing. And so a breakdown of the responses. A majority of the responses actually came from respondents came from North America. That's over 50% of people, and then a large chunk from India, 70% of that, and then smaller fractions from Japan, Europe, and China. So we got a good and we got a good representation from very small to large companies. I mean, which will make this survey a good. We should provide this survey with good insights. I mean, from all these responses of people from different geographies and different size companies. So we asked which platforms are used in production or development environments, and you can see the first top 3 results are all Kubernetes-based platforms. We have Kubernetes Cloud Service at the top at 43.5%. Kubernetes hybrid 41.2%, and Kubernetes on-prem at 34.7%. So this shows that platform use is pivoting towards container-based environments, and specifically Kubernetes. And it becomes important to think about like cloud-native data management and storage strategies, as well as how do you migrate existing data to the cloud-native environments. The next question we asked is how do they use the cloud storage? And almost, 58.1% of responses came back with backup and disaster recovery is the top use. And the second top use is 46.5% for long-term retention. So this is something that's in common with these two use cases. Both functions actually require data to be stored in highly reliable storage and for long periods of time. And these are what clouds do best. And so naturally, cloud storage, is good for like backup and disaster recovery and long-term retention. And we asked about the storage technologies that are used in the infrastructure. So file storage is top, a strong first at 67.1%. And we think that its popularity is due to its ease of use as a common, general purpose storage. Object storage came in at second at 45.3%. And this may be due to the fact that there's more and more unstructured data that needs to be stored. So, and object storage is actually a good way of storing unstructured data. Within the object itself. Okay. And the last finding is cloud storage sits at 41%, which shows that the increasing acceptance of storing data in public clouds by enterprises. And there's actually a very small number down in the chart. If you can see down there, there's like a way down below at 15% is tape. So tape storage is not dead. A lot of people predicting the death or the demise of tape many years ago, but until now, tape is still, in existence, and at 15%, this is a pretty big number. And we asked how SODA brings value to them, and from the question, we see that 50 to 70% of users consider the SODA activities that's listed here to be very important or most important to them. And on the vendor side, that's even, most of the activities that we are doing, there's like 70% kind of a positivity to that. So this is a strong endorsement of what the SODA Foundation is doing and what the community is doing. And thank you for this strong show of support. So these findings kind of validate the direction that we are setting for the open data framework and also the open strategy around open source, open standard, open ecosystem, and open collaboration. We will be presenting more highlights for this from this survey in tomorrow's opening keynote. And we're also preparing an in-depth report on the survey that should be ready in a few weeks. So if you're interested in getting the report, please sign up our newsletter or follow us on Twitter or any of our social media for updates on the report. So this wraps up this opening keynote. Thank you very much for your time, and hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Bill Mulligan, for your thoughts on the opening keynote for SODACON 2021 Data and Storage Matters. It was really heartening to see the collaborations that we are doing with various organizations. I believe that is the way to go forward for an open data framework. And with that, it's time now to move on to the next session. Please note that you will have to exit the session once we close this. You have to go and join the next session. That session is going to be another keynote by Andrei Kudretsev. Kindly join the next session once we're done with this. With that, we'd like to conclude this session. Thank you, everybody.